Yeah, I don't know, man. You ever just feel like life is just catapulting towards some greater purpose?
Average Podcast with bloated ego. We are the only DJ crazy enough to tattoo Jackie Brown on his ass.
This is Michael Mann, and I ride
Yes, I think this is going to be a nice, fun, brief discussion.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I can't think of a briefer discussion to have.
Yeah. It's going to be funny when 20 minutes in, we're like, yeah, it was good. I don't really have much else to say. Welcome to Extended Clip. It is episode 357, and I'm one of your hosts, Eddie Averill.
I'm Malcolm Baum.
I'm JT White.
And joining us, a returning champion guest, a fan favorite guest who has used our podcast to springboard her own podcasting career. You may know her from her podcasts Seeking Derangements and the Movie Mindset, and her appearances on this very show. Welcome, our East Coast correspondent, our New York correspondent, Hesse Deni. What's up?
Hello. Hey, boys. Thank you for having me on again. It's always a pleasure. I truly did. It's not even a joke. I did use your podcast to springboard into. It was the first podcast I ever guested on.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Once you got the bug, you can't stop. It's like a high.
I couldn't fucking quit. I couldn't quit.
It's kind of like the Velvet Underground, you know? Not that many people heard Hesse's episode of Extended Clip, but every single one of them said, if she starts a podcast, I will pay for it. You know? And tell my friends to pay for it as well.
I've done two, haven't I? I've done... What are the episodes I did? One was obviously The Night Porter and Solo.
That was the classic. That was your podcast debut, one of the all-time rookie performances.
Yes.
And then when we met up in New York with Nick Newman.
Yes. Oh my God.
That was a lot of fun.
We ranked Woodies.
Yes, we did rank Woodies.
And by that I mean we all took down our pants, got hard. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the New York clip, if I ever do live in New York, I have to keep the tradition, and every single podcast I record will be in a high-rise hotel in Soho.
That was a nice-ass hotel.
It was, believe it or not, the cheapest hotel in Manhattan.
I believe it. Honestly, yeah. I do believe it.
And it was the nicest hotel I've ever stayed in. Well, Hesse has come back to the program to bring, we used to do double features on this podcast, right? And so it was okay, we got minimum 3 or 4 hours of work before the podcast. The movies, do a little LR, a little light research, get ready for the pod and record. It's 5 hours total. Now we only do one movie per episode. Cuts that workload down quite a bit, unless we are talking about Abel Gance's Roue from 1923 in its full 7-hour form. Now, I read that some accounts of the initial screenings had that had it listed as 9 hours long.
Yes,
but I think that was
hours. I think is
but I feel like that was the kind of thing people jumping out of the way of the train coming at the screen in the Lumiere brothers' first showings, where it's a guy was in there for 3 hours and he had never seen a movie longer than 18 minutes. And he was like, oh, that had to be 12 hours long,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are the only thing that makes me think that could be true, and there's a missing hour of this movie, is that the first part and second part are both 2 hours long, and then the third and fourth part are both an hour and a half long. So I'm maybe there's a missing,
Yeah, there's a missing hour of Ellie, the violin maker, the fantasy world where he wears the cone hat. There's an extra hour of that where he's
double layered fantasy world where he's in his outfit from later in the movie at the beginning, and then it cuts to him in Renaissance goofy Shakespeare costume.
There's an hour-long tea party scene that we missed out on there.
Those fantasy scenes were a great way of learning. You know, I knew I was going to learn a little bit about early 20th century France and the social realist fiction writers who inspired this, like Victor Hugo. But, you know, I did not know going into this that back in Renaissance times, your wife had to wear a dunce cap all the time.
Yes, absolutely. She had to wear a veil and a dunce cap, and you had to show her who was boss. You know what I mean?
But maybe it's only if you marry your sister. Like, that's the thing.
Yes.
It's like incest is allowed, but you have to wear the dunce cap so everyone knows what's good here.
Yes. Well, in that fantasy scene, he calls himself Tristan. So
True.
I think he's imagining Tristan and Isolde.
Oh.
So in that scenario, it's like they're not quite brother and sister, but they are being kept apart by the jealous father figure in his life. So he's kind of like reframing his kind of incestuous sort of love for his stepsister as an almost chivalric, courageous, romanticizing it in this, very rose-colored glasses kind of way. I mean, we're getting into the fucking weeds now.
Oh, yeah. There's
Taking
no
you guys
other
into
way
the
to
weeds.
do this podcast other than getting into the weeds. And before we even say what this movie's about, you totally opened up a door for me there. Like, I didn't really think about, we were calling it the Renaissance times flashbacks, but you saying that it's like Tristan and Isolde, all I know is that that's like an old, like, mythical story, but I don't even know like what the actual story is. Do you have like the log line for what that story is?
It's pretty simple. It's kind of like the Lancelot, Guinevere, like King Arthur thing, where it's like there's a knight and he rescues this. There's Tristan. He's a cool knight, which also is like, a high school jock name, which is kind of funny that there's a knight with that name. And he rescues this hoe, Isolde, and she is like, there's a great opera about this, which is how I know about it. But they both drink a love potion, and it's kind of not really germane to the story because they both just fall in love with each other. But the king who sent Tristan, who's like in charge, is also in love with her, with Isolde, and I don't know how to pronounce it either, so I hope I'm saying it right. So they kind of he like keeps them apart, and I think he kills Tristan and sends Isolde to live in a leper colony, and yeah, R.I.P.
Whenever I heard those names together in reference to that story, I always think people are talking about the 2010s crime drama Rizzoli and Isles. Did you guys ever watch any Rizzoli and Isles?
Absolutely, I've watched Rizzoli and Isles. The one last time I was in LA, there was a huge poster for Rizzoli and Isles on the side of one of the
how long ago was this?
This was a while ago. You can tell I haven't been to
say.
LA in a long time.
A lot of the industry has changed since the glory days of Rizzoli and Isles.
Now it's just Little St. James and surrounding aisles.
Exactly.
It says that, you know what I mean?
Now instead of posters of Rizzoli and Isles, you have posters of Mayor Karen Bass.
Of the Rizzler and
Eddie getting political
something
there.
else.
Karen Bass and the Rizzler. Yeah, that's who rules LA now instead of Rizzoli and Isles.
Because they did rule LA at a point.
It was warring factions. It was like the Capulets and the Montagues between Rizzoli and Isles and Franklin and Bash. Do you guys remember Franklin and Bash?
I don't even remember. I don't remember that at all.
Franklin and Bash was a competing serialized procedure show on like FX or something like that. I think it was like kind of like a comedy, with like Breckin Meyer and like Malcolm McDowell was in it, I think. Who was in it was Kumail Nanjiani. That was where he got his big break, before he got buff. Back when he was committed to the art,
Yeah, I like Breckin Meyer. I've always wondered what happened to that guy. He's
It looks like you got 3 seasons of Franklin and Bash to watch.
Absolutely. I'm definitely going to do that. That's probably the length of LaRue.
Yeah, exactly.
Just imagining like some silent cinema fiend being like, finally, someone did a podcast on LaRue, and just like the first 7 minutes is about like burn notice in the Franklin and Bash. Like, thought we were talking about the great Abel Gance, you know?
Abel Gance, what, did he direct a few episodes of Burn Notice?
He did. He directed Psych. He did some episodes of Psych, I think.
I was a Psych guy, for sure.
He was a stable guy on Suits. He was part of the rotation of directors.
He was one of the Suits. He was one of the Suits.
He also made an on-camera appearance. Yes, of course.
I do have a question. I have a question
Sure.
for you guys. And this is serious. I need to know right now.
Yeah.
What do you think it was worth it for the ending? Because I think it totally is. I think this movie is so fucking good.
Yeah.
The ending blows my fucking mind. It's so... I bawl my eyes out at the ending. Like, I can tell I'm the only one who feels this way. I'm sorry. I'm
Worth
so
it is
sorry.
a weird way to put it, because I do think that the final reel is pretty amazing. Like, the last 20-ish minutes are pretty incredible, but part 4 in general is not great.
No, part 4 is the best part.
I don't know, when it's just
I
like
don't know
them
if I'm
doing
there.
blind antics, like, you know, I don't know. I think the very last 30 minutes of it are really fantastic, but the hour of part 4 leading up to it are not my favorite part of it, but it might have been a little bit of fatigue setting in there.
Yeah.
I would say
Did you
that
watch
the
it in one
first-
sitting? Did all of you watch it in one sitting?
Not even
God,
close.
no.
No.
I did today. I rewatched it.
Oh my God.
Right before this. Yeah, I just finished it.
I think you, alongside the 1923 audience that, applauded it so much that they made them do an encore of the final reel, may have been suffering from an early edition of film-induced Stockholm syndrome, where you're sitting with a film for 7 hours and you're like, well, let's do 3 more hours.
I don't know how to exist anymore.
Yeah.
How to exist without watching this anymore.
Without Sisif guiding you.
I lost my mind. I tweeted about that earlier today, that my favorite joke from Documentary Now, which is about when they're talking about the fake Nanook of the North, and there's the woman who's like, the movie was so good that the audience stood up when it was done and demanded that they play it again from the beginning, which is my favorite joke from that fucking show. And I reading that is a real thing that happened with the last part of this movie, with an audience of 6,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Which is unreal.
I was doing some, light research myself, and I didn't even get a good read. It was more of like a glance, at some information.
Quick glancing.
Quick glance,
if you
a
will.
glance. I've kept glance.
Yeah.
And I think they were watching like a 2.5 hour version, right? Like the original people.
That was no, because here's what they did.
Okay.
You are right. You are kind of right, but what they did, the original version, it premiered on 3 consecutive Thursdays, I think, in 3 parts. So it was like the first 2 hours in part 1. I don't know how they divided it, but I think it was like the first 2 hours they watched, and then a week later, everyone came back and watched the next part. And then at the last, it was like 3 separate screenings. So it was like a serialized type thing. So they were only sitting there for like 2 or 3 hours for the ending part. It's not like they were there for 7 hours and were like, play more. But I do think, that is kind of the best. I won't say the best way to watch it, but it is the most normal way to watch it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's segmented into 4 parts that are pretty easily divisible, I guess, as, quadrants or episodes of the film. And, now we're approaching 15 minutes into this, and there's definitely some listeners that are like, okay, all I know is that it's long and it's called LaRue. So LaRue by Abel Gance. This is his it's crazy that this is like someone's second most popular insane epic, because obviously his Napoleon is one of the landmarks of silent film, probably the most popular French silent film by contemporary standards at least. But Le Roue is his other epic, a tale inspired kind of in equal parts by the turn of the century and 19th century French literature, as well as classical myths, the classics, as it were, as Victor Hugo and Oedipus Rex are invoked in equal measure. And it is also about having the train brain, just being obsessed with the chugga chugga chugga,
Yes.
It's all about that. And I think that, the people who listen to long episodes of Extended Clip about movies from the 20s, from 100 years ago, it's made to soothe your brain, you, dear listener. This is a movie about a railway engineer / conductor named Sisyph, who rescues a young girl from a crash in the beginning of the movie and then raises her as his own daughter, and eventually falls in love with her under these false pretenses, where a parental love becomes a doomed romantic love. And meanwhile, the main reason that he brought her home, besides just saving this little girl, was to bring a sister to the life of his young boy, Ellie, who also falls in love with her. Then enters Ersan, the railway inspector type guy, or someone who's
he owns the railway, I think.
He owns the
something
railway.
like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The guys who are inspecting the railway report to him. That's how he gets looped in. And he takes Norma away to a city life of bourgeois living as a wife, and it all comes crashing down exactly how you would expect, I guess. Not really exactly, but it's a story that's all about the train as the wheels of life that keep turning, and how modernity is going to come through and steamroll your family no matter what you try to do to prevent it, and about the everlasting wheels of fate and time. And it's pretty freaking great, and it's not known as a great movie for its story either, despite it being 7 hours. I think the main thing to talk about, or at least to kind of laud this film for, is its stylistic innovations. We're not really people on this podcast who go digging for this was the first movie to do that. But this was the first movie to do a lot of things. I mean, This has a score accompanied to it that there is rhythmic cutting set to. You don't really get rhythmic editing until, sound is locked into motion pictures later on a grander scale. And so between the rhythmic editing and the innovations in tinting and painting frames and the
montage
use of close-ups
too.
It's this weird thing where there's parallel developments in France and in the Soviet Union in montage, where he kind of beats Eisenstein to the punch a little bit.
Eisenstein is famously has cited this movie as one of his great influences.
Yeah, I mean, Battleship Potemkin being the definitive Eisenstein film as far as global influence goes. I know a lot of Eisenstein fans wouldn't call it his best or anything, but that being his signature work, and that comes out 2 years after this, and clearly he got so many ideas from Le Roue, and the whole Soviet montage school was very impressed with this movie in the way that it cuts between different planes of action, or even cuts just rapidly between angles of one scene altogether. There's the kind of micro and macro level intercutting in this, whether it's two parallel stories or just two parallel spaces within the same story.
I'll tell you my favorite early example of this in the movie is after the opening of the movie, which it opens with a title card that says, "This is for my wife who died." R.I.P. to his wife. And,
who died at 27, which is 100 in 1923,
Yes, yes. And she died. He wrote the movie when she was diagnosed with tuberculosis, and then finished editing like right after she died, basically. That's probably why they filmed it in the Alps for the second part, because she needed to go to the Alps to like get some fresh mountain air kind of for tuberculosis.
I did not know that.
But the after that, there's a montage of like signs, like railway signs, which is, you know, very, you know, metaphorical, because you got the signs of it's like silent film. It's giving you signs and showing you stuff like that. But there's a part after he rescues the little girl, brings her home, he puts her in bed with his biological son, and she like leans over and kisses the biological son. And there's an intercut of 3 different like things amidst this chaotic and beautiful and like bloody and fiery train crash rescue sequence, where it's the daughter kissing the son, intercut with a dog trying to kiss a cat on the foot of their bed, and a woman who is looking for a loved one on the side of a crashed train, but being held back by a bunch of lecherous men who are looking at her like they want to fuck her really bad. And as she's like sobbing and crying, and like, that's the moment where I was like, this guy's operating on another level for real.
Yeah.
This is like, just unbelievable level of like, he's doing psychology before psychology was even invented, basically.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, cinema and psychology were invented at pretty much the same time in Europe, you know, and it's definitely a thread we like to use on this podcast, like when we talked about something like Persona. But I think that this, you know, the psychological style of editing is so at the forefront of this one that, yeah, it's something you just have to talk about. Also, I think the most impressive thing, other than the rapid cutting and the like psychological depth that it kind of proposes to the audience to kind of dig into, is the use of color in the first part. I mean, it's the subtitle for the prologue is The Scarlet Twilight. And I was like, oh, Scarlet Twilight. That sounds nice. That sounds pretty, you know. But of course, This is the twilight of a lot of people's lives as they die in this train crash. And it's this thing where it alternates between the frames being tinted red and then the frames that aren't tinted having red painted on them, as you see like people's blood splattered all across the screen. And it just makes the frames that are tinted red that much more of like an implied sense of loss, where it's just like blood is literally overflowing the camera lens, like you just got shot in GoldenEye, you know? Yes. And I just love that use of tinting there. I mean, he wasn't the first person to expressively use colored tinting, but this is like some of the best use of it that I've seen from this era.
My favorite part where with the tinting at the beginning is the sequence where there's another train coming towards the crash that is happening, and it can't be switched because there's like an axle from a destroyed train like stuck on the switch that is preventing like this other train, which would compound the tragedy if it were to like head straight into this terrible train accident. And it's as it's coming towards the accident, there's one quick frame where you can see that it's like from behind this train and it's going towards like the horizon, and you can see that there's a point like further like towards the horizon that the train is heading to, where the sky goes from black and white to just pure red. And it's kind of like that is the point of no return, like the tragedy zone. So it's like almost like it gives the color a spatial reality as well as an emotional reality of like that's where the accident is happening, and that area is like actually red right now. It's not just purely a matter of perspective or dramatization. It's almost diegetic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry I made you guys watch this movie.
No, it was
Sorry.
I mean, it was a great experience. I like with every image here, like whether it comes to like color or like kind of angle, there's just such a meticulousness to it, and I guess that comes with a lot of silent movies, but with this one, there's just like a handcrafted quality to like each image to really, get across kind of like whether the action or like the emotions of the character. And, there being 7 hours, there's time for all of that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And with like the color tinting too, it is like, I feel like I haven't seen like, I feel like I've seen some of that blue tint before, but I feel like we got a pretty like wide color swath here, you know what I mean? He really is using a lot of different colors. Like I think if I recall correctly, because I did watch this movie in like 10 sittings. I have to be honest. I did. I did. I mahered it. But
you went 22-minute episodes like it's a sitcom.
Yeah, exactly.
The funniest sitcom of all time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, but I feel like the red and the train crash, there's like a point where it goes from like red to orange, just to up the urgency, and just kind of small decisions like that, just really like emphasize, all the stuff that's going on here, and the rhythms, whether it's like the movie's kind of moving at a fast pace or it kind of slows down and we're more kind of like in the interiority of Sisyph or Ely or whatever. It's I don't regret watching this movie. In fact, I thought it was quite good. Despite the length. The length is, that's like an end discussion. I won't bring it up yet. I don't want to play. I don't want to be here with my safety scissors. Because that's not great. That's not great criticism. But like I feel like anytime there's like a canonized silent movie that's like 4 hours plus long, it's usually pretty good. Like the hit rate is pretty high, even if it does feel like maybe vegetables to watch a 7 hour silent movie. But
it's like, what are you going to do otherwise? Watch 3 1.5 hour movies, unless you're really trying to goose your stats on Letterboxd.
Yeah, I was just watching it and thinking about all the Franklin and Bash I could have been watching instead.
Exactly.
Could have got a whole
Where's
season.
Breckenmeyer? Where's Brecken? And do you know what, Malcolm? The when it changes from red to orange is whenever the train itself is in the shot. So you're looking straight into the fire of the train, the burning train. It is red. But whenever it's from the tracks looking out, like towards the girl under the rose bush, like on the side of the tracks, it's orange, almost like the light of the fire is she's lit by the orange like glow of the burning train. So I think like stuff like that is just so beautiful to me, and like but there's also, not to say it's all entirely like diegetic like that or anything, because there are parts where he has flashbacks to the, like when he brings the girl home to his apartment, and it's like his apartment is just totally like bathed in red, almost like there's no diegetic explanation for that. It's more like this is just, he's dooming himself and his entire family to like a hell and damnation and ruin, and just like hooking them to the wheel, as they say.
Yeah. JT, what did you think about the opening set piece, the opening prologue into Act 1 here?
Again, with something that is this long, it does an effective job of like sort of hooking you with like making this like a story that I think becomes like so much smaller as it goes along, but has like builds this sense of like grand scope. And with I don't know, the cross-cutting that Hesse was talking about earlier, with that I love, with the dog and then the woman by the wreckage and then the two like children in the bed. I think it's just a perfect example of how something like, I don't know, right away, I mean, it does like sort of constrict a little bit in scope, where I was just like, right from the beginning, I was just like, oh, is this going to be like a long intergenerational story like some of those early like silent epics are, where you sort of go through. But I don't know. I think it's just like with that, like just elevating the scale of the story to something like classic myths.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the other aspect that we didn't really talk about in terms of the style is the variety of aspect ratios and like shapes of the frame, because the matte work in this is just like nonstop. Just almost every single shot is going to be in a different shape. You know, you have your classic like 1:3:3 to 1 Academy style ratio, and that's as large and full framed as it's going to get. But so often Abel Gance is matting these shots either from the top and bottom or from the sides to even create like vertical images. And then you have a lot of irised shots and a lot of stuff that kind of like predates different types of framing. You know, like when he really brings the top and bottom in, he's really framing it like CinemaScope, you know, before they were using anamorphic lenses. And there's a lot of images that are just so indelible in that like sense, where it's just, I don't know, everything has that meticulously handcrafted feeling to it, even if it's a shot that lasts for fucking 10 frames in half a second, you know?
Yeah, I think like, and there's all this shit in it that I think is just like so, like, I mean, you could do like a laundry list of movies that steal shots directly from this. Like, I think the very famous oil derrick fire in There Will Be Blood, which is it like kind of lift from Sorcerer, is actually also a lift from this. I think both movies kind of the like train accident scene where it's like a huge fire of this tragedy happening, or this like thing going on, and just silhouettes of people trying to stop it, like moving around. And also like Days of Heaven, all that stuff. You know, Europa, the like like facing down at the train track rails, almost like as a hypnotic image of, you know, rails converging on each other and diverging and just like running along like that. And just so many like little things that are just from other movies that are taken. And like, there are so many, you know, there are parts of this movie that are very silent film, like very dated, very lengthy. And, you know, I think the part where he's horny for his daughter and I think that's the weakest part of the movie to me, just because of how long it takes and how, you know, it really is, it goes on for a long time. But I think like even after that part, like after he gets kind of partially blinded, his vision gets affected. There's one shot that I think is like one of the craziest shots of all time. There are several different ways that it represents how his vision is like failing now, and how his vision is like fucked up by this accident that he was in. One is like all these, you know, matte shots of, you know, the train yard going over each other. Another is like just blurry shots. But the craziest one is there's a shot where he's like blinking and like trying to look, and his vision is obscured by these kind of circles, just like floating circles and like moving circles. And the moving circles are just literal like superimposed like signals from the train line, kind of in his vision, almost like that's so fucking crazy to me. I don't even know exactly what was meant by that, besides like, I mean, there's so much there. It's like a picture is worth a million words, truly.
Well, it's like the thing where if you look at like a light source or something like that and then close your eyes, you still see the outline of that light source. And he's been looking at those kind of traffic light looking signals on the train tracks for so long that when he starts going blind, his vision just becomes those lights, despite them not being there.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and like I don't know, just talking about how much the movie is just sort of like overflowing with style. The fact that it has all these different ways, like I feel like even like a contemporary film, when like sort of like I don't know, trying to show like POV blindness or someone becoming blind, I think they would stick to one way of doing it to develop a particular motif. But again, there's just so many ways he represents that. Doesn't like a little bit later when he's like almost completely blind, isn't it like the image sort of like whites out like entirely?
Symphony of White. The entire last like part 4 is called Symphony in White.
It's so awesome. I love that. I mean, especially because I feel like when you're traditionally like thinking of like blindness, I think it's sort of like kind of a going to black here, but just like being just sort of washed out with light is just, I don't know, so much more powerful and like works with the movie and like consistent with like being blinded by the lights of the train.
Mm-hmm. And the ending, the movie ends with a fade to white instead of a fade to black, which is like, it's very, I don't know. I think like the ending is fucking crazy. And I do think like the thing about part 4 that could be why you saw it, Eddie, is like, you know, goofy like blind antics, is that the music doesn't quite fit for a lot of it. Like the music is kind of goofy, and it is the original music on the Criterion release, but like in reality it's like, if you like, that's like so fucking dark. Like what's happening at the end is like so fucking dark. Is like the girl trying to hide in her own father's house when he's blind and like help him without being detected, and just like it's so fucking it's really kind of it's like upsetting. And like there's other shots in that, like I think part 4 is my favorite because I mean, there's that, and then there's, you know, the amazing ending where it's a slow fade to white, and it's like, there's also like the part where his old buddy, I forgot his name. He has a funny French name. His fireman, who I think it took me like 4 hours to realize that's just what they call the guy who shovels the coal into the engine.
I think his name is like Machafar or something like that.
Mocktafer. Mocktafer.
Mocktafer. Yeah. There's a lot of crazy names in this. What about the Greek guy who has the diamond?
Oh my
or whatever?
god, I have the Greek guy's name. He has like
the longest name of all time.
The Greek guys has one of the funniest title cards I've ever seen. Let me read it really quickly. This is Mr. Kalatarikarisopoulos. We just got married. Huge fortune, fantastical about mineralogy. Doesn't speak a word of French. Cool guy.
The whole subthread of like Hersan's like annoying girlfriends that he used to hang out with before Norma, all that stuff's super funny. Like I love when, I think it's that scene where one of the old girlfriends is introducing the Greek guy, not even going to attempt the name, to Norma and Hersan, and then it's kind of seen that, you know, they're not so jealous, and then like when they get back, doesn't she like beat the fuck out of him or something? She like starts like hitting him.
Yeah,
like that's like that's so funny.
Off. He cares more about his fucking crystals than he does her.
He's obsessed
with rocks.
Yeah, there's a lot of
minerals.
great like comedy kind of wedged in between like the, you know, the rapid train action and like the you know, kind of family melodrama we got going on here. Like this kind of happens more in the first parts, but like they'll just be, you're introduced to a new environment and we get like a look of what's going down. Like and like Gance is just really good at just like, you know the character just from the frame you're introduced by them. Like I feel like there's like that train recoveral committee where like Seasif gets like the letter that proves that Norma is not, you know, his biological daughter, and pretty baller, you know, uses that letter
with
to
Twink Hitler
light up that cigar. Yeah, exactly. Someone's got a Hitler stash, and then but like there's like a guy just like looking over something. I can't remember what it is, but it is just, you get like the entire vibe of what's going on there. And then
You have the little saloon too, where all the train workers hang out, and
the engineer clubhouse is great
yeah,
too.
yeah,
The big drunk guy, like you get a crazy shot.
Yes.
Just tracking this big drunk guy as, we just see the drunken madness of this engineer clubhouse, and then it cuts to like Sisif just like even more drunk than those. Like you just see like have 5 minutes of like drunk buffoons, and then it cuts to Sisif in the corner, and it's like, and this guy's more drunk than all of them.
He's like sad drunk. He's
Yeah.
like sad drunk.
There's
Yeah.
even that's how you know it's like some real like foo French shit. Is like the manliest men in French were still doing like palm readings at their bar,
Yeah,
which is
absolutely.
a great moment, and one of the great like double exposures / superimpositions or whatever you want to call it in this, where he gets his palm read after all the tragedy, and he's like coming to terms with the fact that he's in love with the girl he raised as his daughter, and his palm, it just gets a train superimposed over it, and it's like, yeah, your entire fate is just the train. That's all you
Yes.
have is the wheel. Just the wheel of time just is going to keep going, and you can't like stop to get off and hang out and get off with your fake daughter. You gotta keep throwing fire in the burners with Moktefer. And that guy is also very funny. The comic relief character of Moktefer, who's like the fireman on the train, who's always reading this like serialized pulp novel called The Pavement Virgin, and like getting drunk on the caboose of the train, and
And he's always so
it's-
tired.
Yeah, he's introduced by an extreme close up of him yawning in like 5 different scenes. It's
Yeah,
like,
where it's the Filth album, the Swan, like the
Yes.
Swans album Filth. It's that album cover. And I love the part. There's like a really strange scene in part 1 or 2 where he keeps yawning, and there are all these like hoity-toity big business, like big wigs kind of getting off the train, and he keeps yawning, and it just keeps cutting to them like getting off the train, and they keep yawning too, like doing sympathetic yawns because of how he's yawning. And it's like, in my mind, I'm like, that's just for Gance. So when he's in the theater, he's turning around and like looking to see if anyone in the audience is yawning as well, like just to see if that works. That's him doing a little experiment.
he's seeing if the contagious yawn is like only in person, or if it will happen in a movie theater too, if you watch people do it. I still
Yes.
remember getting my mind blown like that when I was in like middle school. My friends and I were playing COD on Xbox Live, and some guy yawned on mic, and then all of us started yawning. And I was like, oh my God, the technology of Call of Duty has brought...
And that guy was Abel Gance.
Yes, exactly. It was the ghost of Abel Gance.
And all the extras in the train yard are real train engineers from that actual train yard, because they built all the sets on an actual train yard. And apparently like Gance would show them this is pre-dailies, but he would show them like what he was gonna film, and was like, is this like technically accurate? I want to make sure I'm getting it right.
Yeah.
It would be like, yeah,
Damn.
dude, you're killing it.
I mean, it's all shot on location, and that adds so much to this movie. All the stuff at the train yards and stuff is just like so incredible, because so many silent films, even some of the best ones with the most expressive set designs, like you could tell you're just inside at the studio, and every room is right next to the other room, and this one you really feel the almost quasi documentary feeling of shooting on location, especially once you're up in the Alps in the second half of the movie, which is a very funny thing. Like how it gets there is Sisif is getting more and more blind and more insane, because he has to deal with this secret, and it's affecting his work. And at one point he tries to do a mass murder suicide with the train, and the way that the train company puts him out to pasture is just like, all right, you could just drive the cable car up in the Alps. Like, we don't want
Yeah.
you crashing and burning 1,000 people going to Paris, but like, if you want to make a train fall off the cables in the Alps, go for it. You know,
Yeah.
be my guest.
We'll give you the steel snail, I think is what they say. And there are several shots of a snail superimposed onto the track of the funicular in the Alps. And it's so like he has Norma, which is the daughter, and then after she leaves, he names the train Norma 2. And he's like, I'm obsessed with you now. You're my new girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then he destroys the train, and then he's like, well, now my new cable car is Norma 3. It's like the Simpsons with the snowballs, you know, like the cat that
exactly.
keeps dying.
And I love that, like, in Norma 2 is like he talks to it and it talks back to him. Like there's actual text on the screen of like the train like responding to him and talking to him and saying like shit to him.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny because that's like, you know, Ely has his like, whatever you call it, his Tristan fantasy world or whatever, Tristan fantasies, where he's Tristan. And then like his fantasy world is just like, you know, it's still trains. It's still just the wheel. It's like, what if I could like cuddle this train? Like that, my life would be complete, you know?
Yeah. All I need is my train girlfriend, you know? Like I just need this train.
He would have loved the internet with all the like the obscure machine pornography that he could have jacked off to.
Yes, absolutely. And he's like an expert at it. He invents a new thing. And I tried looking up because there's a part where he's like, his boss, Mr. Hassan, he's like, oh, get me that new invention that you made for trains. I'm going to go to the patent office and give it to them. And I'll give you the money for the patent. I'll give you 300 francs. And I don't know if this can't be correct, but I looked up like what is a 1 franc in 1920s France compared to $1 in current US dollars. And the answer I got was 1 franc in 1920s France is 0.000001 US dollars.
What?
So it's like that can't possibly be true.
1% of a penny.
I think maybe they took that measure like one day after World War I ended or something. Like, literally.
I do like how much innovation and like invention plays a part in so many old-timey narratives like this, because as you said, you know, he has his little invention for the train's efficiency, and then also Ellie, who's like a violin maker, invents a new type of wood finishing for violins that makes him successful.
Yes,
and I just like that everyone was inventing stuff back then. You know, we ran out of stuff to invent between World Wars I and II, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's truly like, I love the wood finishing thing with him because he's like, there's an ancient wood finishing. It's like, do you know what Greek fire is?
I don't think so, no.
There's God, I'm showing how much of a fucking autistic nerd I am with this, but there's
I know cool things.
Yeah, exactly. There's like famous like historical accounts of Greek ships, or not Greek ships. I think they might have been like Phoenician or something, like some kind of like ships, like sea people ships or something, where these ships would be shooting like huge flamethrowers of like 60-foot long like pillars of fire at other ships.
Damn.
And it would stick and the water would not put it out of like, it would like stay lit on top of the water. And they would be able to shoot like so much of it and their ships wouldn't burn from it. And there are like multiple accounts of this. And to this day, historians do not know what it was or how they did it. And it's kind of like that was happening, but for a violin finish. for like a special like veneer that they like rubbed onto a violin. Ellie is like, I just figured it out. Yay.
He split the atom, basically. Yeah.
Yes, literally. He split the violin.
Well, speaking of splitting the violin, that becomes like the big gesture of love between Ellie and Norma. It's not until he finds out that Norma is not his sister that he accepts his own love for her, because like he fantasizes about being with her from the very beginning. The first time we get that Tristan and Isolde style flashback, the title card preceding it is like, modern life is so exacerbating, and then it's implied it's like, I wish I could just be in ancient times and marry my sister instead.
Yeah, no, before you get that sort of like loophole to figure it out, it's just a lot of just like smiling or very bigly at your sister and just being like, I wonder what these feelings are.
Yeah.
Also, the way that they goof off together is very funny. Like the whole relationship between Norma and Ellie in the very beginning is like, yeah, they're a little too friendly, but also like their idea of having a good time is like putting a hat on their pet goat and drawing a mustache on Norma's face.
I mean, dare I say there's some gender going on in this film.
There is definitely some sort of gender going on with that. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, she remembers in part 4, she finds her trunk. There's a recurring theme in parts 1 and 2 of this like trunk of her clothes. Mm-hmm. That her old shitty like rail girl clothes. Like there's a part where Sissif like finds it and is looking at the clothes and is like, oh, I miss her. And then later on, it's kind of like mirrored in her finding that trunk. Sissif has brought it to his cabin in the Alps. Mm-hmm. And she's like looking at all her old clothes and realizing that like the happiest she's ever been in her entire life was when she had a fake mustache drawn on her and was like chasing her brother around.
Yeah.
And she's like, It really is like, if I wasn't a damn woman, if I wasn't such a damn baddie, I would probably have such a happy life right now, it would be me, my dad, and my brother just chilling out, like hanging out on the rail yards.
Just the 3 train boys.
Yeah, the 3 train boys, truly. But no, I had to fuck everything up by being... just a 10 out of 10 smoke show.
But instead, Sissif is like breathing outside her like door while she sleeps at night. That's
a crazy sequence where he's like having a debate. Like, maybe if I tie a rope to block the stairs, I won't rape her.
His fantasies about not assaulting his daughter are just very OJ if I did it style, like the worst hypothetical.
All of the incest stuff, because especially in the first part, like I wish there was like a contemporary incest porn that started with a guy who's just
I do too, by the way. Just stopping, hard stop right there. Contemporary incest porn too.
Just driven to drink. Like that's something that's so funny. Just realizing your insatiable lust to because he's so I wouldn't say happy necessarily, because he's dealing with a train crash, but he's a positive guy full of life, and then you just see him covered in soot just becoming a drunk because again it's just like anyone else there's just
well, also they invoke Oedipus a few times, even one of the title cards quoting right from it about how some disgraces must be silenced, and I kind of put that together as he's kind of a reverse Oedipus, where he gets so horny for his daughter that he goes blind, instead of gouging his own eyes out at the sight of what he's done to his mother. He's like, oh God, even in 1920s France, I read Oedipus Rex. I already know what this is, old hat to me. I'm inverting it and making myself blind at the sight of my fake daughter.
It's the
Yeah,
perfect
that's-
solution. He can't see her. He won't want to fuck her anymore.
Exactly. No, and that is what happens, kind of. And
Pretty
like,
much.
Yeah.
that also is. I mean, it does seem like it's easy to conflate stuff like Oedipus Rex and all these biblical things, all these like old stories like Tristan and Isolde, like all this shit. It's easy
Rizzolian
to
Isles.
Rizzolian Isles. It's easy to conflate it with Victor Hugo and like Rudyard Kipling, who also I read an essay that says he took a lot from Rudyard Kipling. So I'm saying that to be smart, but I've never fucking
also
read
he-
any. So besides White
quotes
Man's Burden,
Kipling.
which
Great, misunderstood. Anyway,
yeah.
it's about depiction, not endorsement. White Man's Burden.
No, I know.
But yeah, no, Kipling and Hugo were like equal influences in terms of literary.
I think Kipling
influences.
almost more so on this movie, according to this essay I read.
Yeah.
He like took,
Well,
but
he
anyways,
quotes
go ahead,
Kipling
go ahead.
more for sure.
Oh yeah.
Like I guess he must have found one Rudyard Kipling book that had a lot of stuff about wheels in it because he was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna make every other title card this thing."
No, I
There's
can
so
tell
many
you. I
wheel
can literally
quotes.
tell you which book it was. I can tell you exactly which book it was. The Light That Failed. Which is a Kipling novel. Let me read you the plot of The Light That Failed. A morbid tale of unrequited love. And this is from, by the way, Paul Cuff wrote something in the Literature Film Quarterly called Words, Radiating Images, Visual Text, and Abel Gance's Roue. A morbid tale of unrequited love. In his youth, Dick falls for Maisie, a fellow orphan. After a successful career as a war artist, Dick re-encounters Maisie, who still rejects his love. Dick then descends into bitterness, blindness, and eventual death on a remote battlefield. And apparently, according to this, Abel Gance loved this book and met Kipling at one point and blew his mind by telling him, "Yeah, I can't, like Maisie, I can't believe you wrote about a lesbian." And Kipling was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, Maisie in that book is a lesbian." And Kipling was like, "What the fuck?" And like had like a psychological breakthrough or something.
Once he learned about lesbians.
He made Kipling hit the pause. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Identifying the truth about Gerard's sexuality long before modern biographers confirmed it. Because this was based on someone Kipling knew in his life. So it apparently like made like Kipling realize like, fuck, I was in love with a lesbian this whole time, dude.
It invented the like, oh, it's not my issue. She's a lesbian. That's why she's not into me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
If she just tried some of this dick, some of this Kipling dick, If she tasted this yard, my Rudyard,
Rudyard.
she'd be Kipling for more, If she tasted this Rudyard, she'd be Kipling for more.
His rud is a yard long. Don't like that. Also influenced by Rudyard Kipling, Rivers Cuomo. Little people know that. You know, the pink triangle influenced by Rudyard Kipling.
Yeah, there's gonna be rivers of Cuomo if once this lesbian tastes my Rudyard. Yeah, I fucking love
one of the other great sequences in this is the very end of part 2, where he has this like total death drive where he destroys Norma 2, that train, before he gets put out to pasture. And it's this great like kind of symbolic thing where I'm not sure if it's his point of view watching like a funeral procession go by, because there's all these people like with their head hung low in like cloaks and stuff like that after all the wreckage, and obviously there's not going to be like an instant funeral, so I couldn't tell if it was supposed to imply that there was a funeral going on already like next to the train crash site, or if it was just like a suggestive piece of imagery. But it's like such a great fucking piece of imagery.
Yeah, you can see the coffin that they're carrying in that part too.
And it ends part 2 on a shot of Sisyph on that rotating platform that train technology has not advanced that much, I guess, because those I always think are like really cool and modern whenever I see them, but they've been around forever, those rotating platforms. And the camera is on the edge of the rotating platform, and it's matted into a CinemaScope like frame, and it is straight up just a Tony Scott shot. Like that shot of Sisyph in the middle of the rotating platform as the camera rotates along, like counterclockwise as he rotates clockwise, is that's straight up like Man on Fire shit.
Long
like,
lens.
Yeah, exactly.
And Sisyph is slowly counter turning. He's like slowly turning his head in the other direction as it's turning. It's so fucking sick. And it's
one
like,
of my favorite shots in the whole movie for sure.
Yes. The ending of each section. They all have like so many like crazy shots in them,
and none of them are like held on very long. You would think for a 7-hour movie some of these money shots he would hold on to longer, but they're all pretty fleeting. Let's just call it intermission right now.
Okay, sick. I'll be right back.
I'm rewatching The Sopranos right now.
How's that? Are you
I'm back.
Just getting into it? Nice. Welcome back.
Let's talk Sopranos for a second.
Yeah,
let's get into it.
This is like this is the check of the podcast. Like if you've made it an hour and 6 minutes into the podcast, you're allowed to listen to us talk about The Sopranos.
Are your one movie episodes usually like, how long are they usually?
An hour.
Oh fuck. Sorry you guys.
Sopranos, I am like on episode 9 right now. I haven't rewatched it since before COVID. So I am like really getting into it again. Because I had watched it I probably watched it 3 or 4 times in college, but I graduated college in like 2017, 2018. So it's probably since then that I haven't watched it. So,
you know what I noticed about The Sopranos is that like season 1 has a lot more like visual flourish, a lot more cinema style like shots and compositions than the later seasons, I think, even. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was part of just like following the template of the pilot because the pilot has some really ostentatious camera work for a TV show, and then I think people were just following the direction of that kind of, and then slowly it gets toned down. And I think also it's like the show gets more serious as it goes because season 1 is basically a comedy, like for half of it, like there's a lot of dark shit in season 1, but it's so much more. The whole series is funny, but season 1 has like comedic set pieces, and like scenes that the entire effect of the scene is supposed to be comedy. And I feel like the more zany camera work kind of lends itself to that, whereas it gets a little more locked down as you get into the later seasons and with like the sadness that occurs,
Yeah, I think like I promise I'll stop talking about The Sopranos after this, but something I really like have been realizing lately, because my friend is rewatching it right now and we've just been talking about it, is that so many of the villains in the show are so much less like, if you think about it, like on the surface they're really like they're so evil, but honestly like dollars to donuts, like Ralphie, Richie, neither of them are even close to being as evil as Tony Soprano. Like truly, they are both so, like they're both so much less scary as people than Tony is. Like,
well, Ralphie has the one episode though with the stripper that arc makes him worse, but otherwise I would say he's more of a comedic figure for the most part.
Well, that's the thing about Ralphie is that he's the only character in the entire show that is like genuinely you're like, oh, this guy's gonna change. He's gonna go from being a bad person to a good person. Like he could, like when his kid gets hit by the lawn dart, and he's like, and like you're like, wow, this could be a genuine arc. Like a character could change in this show, something that never happens to any character in the show. And Tony is like, oh, so you're sad about your kid dying, but you're not sad about my horse? Just fucking spoilers, but he fucking kills it just for that reason, literally.
I mean, I had forgotten that Chris and Paulie's conversation about arcs comes a lot earlier than I thought. I thought that was a much later thing. I thought that was like when Chris was, a junkie, but that's like in episode 5 or 6 of the show. And, that really is like, obviously, people like to use that scene as a reference for real life, that nobody has an arc and shit just happens to you.
Yeah.
But I think that is a great like setup for the entirety of the show. Is that?
Yeah, and nothing did. So what? Yes.
And look, I think the people don't change movement. LaRue was a big
yes.
part
Let's
of
get back
that,
to LaRue. Let's get back to LaRue.
Like there is. Only the slow decay of the mind and body of Sisyphe. These long arcs of the other characters are, things that happen to them because of the circumstances that Sisyphe put them into.
He does kind of have an arc, and the arc is kind of like an emotional arc of the stages of grief, where it's like, denial and then anger and then like eventually acceptance of like.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of learns to live with his, what's it called? His daughter. And he's like, I'm happy now. Like, this is, I fucked up everyone's life. Everyone's life is fucked, but my life is over. Time to die. And the part where I cry every single, like, I've only watched it twice, but both times I've watched it, I cried at the same part. Can I tell you the part?
Yes.
It's a part in part 4 where, like, an hour in, there's a title card that says, "That night, Toby explained to Ellie the beautiful things which the echoes carried."
Oh,
and
yes.
it's the dog
barking into the wind.
Yeah, it's the dog howling next to the cross that memorializes Ellie. And it just holds on that for like a minute. It's like, damn, dude. And then it's just like later, and then it's like the next day. It's like, that's it. It's like, holy shit, dude. That's fucking so sad. Like, that's so like, I don't know. That's like a tearjerker to me. That makes me fucking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The way they use the dog in the second half especially is very like sentimental and sweet, and I'm a sucker for it. It's a big old dog, bigger than the girl even. Like, I love that kind of thing. The dog's the real man of the house once Sisyphe goes blind.
Yes, absolutely. One of the last lines of the entire movie, if not like the last line, is Sisyphe saying, "Tell me, Toby, is the wheel still turning up there?"
Oh.
as
so
the
good.
As the daughter and the the like youths are dancing in a circle on the mountain, and it's just like so fucking, it's like so, it just makes me cry so much. And it's not even like a sad ending necessarily. It's like, it's just so
I think it's like a
emotional.
sad decline toward the end, and then it's like not uplifting, but him coming to terms with his own death and decline at the end, which is what makes it so powerful, And
yes,
you could even make the case that being up in the Alps, like, and in this kind of heavenly setting, if you will, is metaphorically that Sisyphe, as his identity as a railway conductor, has died halfway through the movie, and the second half of the movie is him accepting his fate of dying up in the Alps as a blind cable car driver, because all he longs to go back to Norma 2 and to ride, the big rails through Nice, but he can't do that anymore. But he's surrounded by all of this beautiful billowing nature, and the location shooting in the second half is just phenomenal. I mean,
unreal.
When Ersan comes back into town to basically fight Ellie to the death, that action sequence is like a fucking Mission Impossible set piece where they're on that cliffside and Ellie is hanging off by one hand on a branch and he's reaching for his gun while Ersan is like stabbing him with a staff and like trying to get him to fall off the cliff. And it's so protracted and you keep cutting back to the cabin, and it's just like, I don't know, the way that Gance is able to protract these long set pieces is really masterful and like makes you just feel miserable because you just want it to be over, like not in a way of boredom but of like, oh my god, let this guy die already. When Ersan gets shot, it takes like another 30 minutes for him to die as Ersan comes stumbling, bleeding back into the cabin. And you know, Gance is very tricky with the way that he depicts that too, because you just see
you don't
them
know which one it
struggling.
is.
You just see them struggling, and then you just cut from the cabin where Norma and Sisif are to a man who is vaguely framed with blood dripping off of him, blood, you know, blackening the snow, and you don't know who it is. And it reminds me more of like another French silent master like Fouillade, who did what's it called?
Les Fantomas.
Yes, Fantomas. It reminds me of the mystery of Fantomas and like the way that he's able to manipulate the audience and whatnot. Yes, he did Judex, he did Fantomas, and he did Les Vampires.
Yes, the trilogy. I don't think I've ever seen Fantomas. I think I've seen just Judex.
Fantomas, even to me, like on a story level, I like it better than this, but it's not nearly as stylistically expansive.
Yo, let's do that. Let's do that next time.
Yeah, next time we'll do Fantomas.
Fantomas
might be shorter, even though it's an actual serial. Actually, I think Fantomas is like 10 hours. It's a little longer.
Yeah.
Than this one.
Nah,
that was a classic.
That
was a classic COVID watch for me.
Let's do the Decalogue. Let's do Empire.
Oh yeah, Decalogue. That'll be real fun. Also, just like a really fun thing to talk about for 12 hours.
Absolutely, Empire. Just, yo, I can't believe the Empire State Building looks like that.
I was thinking of doing like proposing another series because we've done some TV stuff on this podcast. I want to cover the Lars von Trier miniseries,
Kingdom.
Yes, I want to do Kingdom. Like that looks awesome, honestly. And I don't know much about Lars von Trier, and I kind of want to take the sicko approach to getting into him, which is watching Kingdom for 12 hours.
It's literally one of my favorite directors of all time. Can I read you a direct quote from... I'm sorry, we're getting sidetracked once again.
That is okay. Derailed, if you will.
Yeah, I'm going to read an amazing quote from... Udo Kier about working on The Kingdom. I would do any film with Lars. This is a direct quote, by the way. I'm not paraphrasing. I would do any film with Lars. One of my favorite films with Lars was The Kingdom, where I play a baby and I was born. They built this amazing lower part of a woman with big legs, and I was actually in the stomach of this woman. And I had a piece of wood with 4 wheels, and just before I went in, they put some blood and slime on my head. It was interesting because I couldn't imagine it. I couldn't prepare or rehearse. Then I heard action and I tried to get out, but it didn't work. I thought, I have to get out of here, even if I break the whole thing. So I just had to force my way out, going, yeah! That was the day I was born.
Thank you, Udo. Very cool.
Yeah, he's the best, dude. You got to have me on for Blood for Frankenstein, or Blood for Dracula and Flesh for Frankenstein if you haven't done those yet. That's
we
actually
have
the
not.
next one. No one's allowed to pick those.
Okay.
But let's get back.
Put them on the reserved list. Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's get back to. Should we get back? Wait, you were saying something, Malcolm?
No, I was going to talk more Kier, unfortunately. But
yeah, go ahead.
That's okay.
There's this like movie I've always wanted to watch called like Seduction: The Cruel Woman that stars Udo Kier, and like it's like a BDSM heavy movie, and like I feel like he's like going like it reminded me of that because it seems like Udo's going through the ringer in that movie. Like he's like I've actually have no idea what it's about, but I just assume that like there's some physical feats that he has to perform in that movie.
Yeah, mid-80s German erotica. Very strange stuff.
I actually have a quote about that movie from him, too.
Perfect.
Okay. I don't like this film. It's the only film where I didn't get paid. It's not my voice. It's very strange to see yourself when it's not your voice. Maybe there were some technical problems, but they thought I would never come back to redo my voice unless they paid me. So they got someone else. It's ridiculous. I don't even know who the director was. The people made this film. The people who made this film wanted to put a lot of people together to make a lot of money. I had just done the most erotic French film, the story of O. And I was in Cannes, and some people came to me and asked if I would like to shoot this in London for 3 weeks and drive a beautiful Rolls Royce. I said, great. Great little peek behind the scenes from Udo Kier. His Empire interview. He has an incredible Empire interview where he says a bunch of shit like that.
I didn't even know he did the story of O.
Yeah.
By Just Jackin.
He's in Suspiria.
Yeah?
In,
Yes, he is.
He's in so much shit.
He would have fit right in LaRue. Like, he would have been a great silent actor. You know,
Absolutely.
The expressiveness of his face, you know.
I mean, have you ever seen him in his youth? He's maybe
think so.
He's maybe the most handsome man of all time. He is the hottest person ever in like the history of the world. I'll send it to LaRue chat. I'll send a picture of him to LaRue chat right now.
I mainly know what he looks. When I think of Udo Kier, I mainly think of him in Downsizing. You know, partying with Christoph Waltz and Matt Damon.
Absolutely, or him in Madonna's sex book, where he's having sex with Madonna. He's Madonna's husband. Here, I just sent a picture of him to
That is a handsome man. I will cede this to you.
Oh,
Now you're
wow.
coming with a little more flesh.
We
on
got
this
some
one.
skin.
exactly,
For the listeners at home, Hesse is sending very revealing pictures
Twink
of a young
Udo Kier. Yes.
young Twinkie Udo Kier to the chat.
In our pornography chat. Yeah, that
Yeah,
we
which I know is exactly what podcast listeners want. Is
Yeah.
I'm
the
so
reactions
Well,
reactions of 3 straight guys to scantily clad man images.
Okay, let's get
chat
back.
is just our incest pornography chat.
Yes, exactly. It's just incest porn. One of my favorite little like moments from LaRue is it's either in part 3 or part 2, or not part 3 or part 4, where they first move to their like cabin in the Alps. And Cece starts painting the walls white, like Patrick and SpongeBob painting Mr. Krabs' house. And as he's like painting them, like in vain, clearly, it's almost like a comedic like beat, because he's painting like 1 inch of the wall over and over again. It like pans back. And it's like the ceiling is like 15 to 20 feet high. And it's like, he's not going to be able to paint this house, dude. But as that's going on, very, 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 very like subtly superimposed over the room is just the name Norma.
Yes.
Like as if she's like a ghost that is like present in the room while not being present, you know, like almost subconsciously is at the center of the room. And you have Cece on one side and Ellie on the other side. And it's almost between them. And, you know, like, because Ellie is... There's a part where Ellie and Norma reconnect. And Ellie is... This is also one of my favorite sequences in the movie, is when Ellie and Norma reconnect, and there's a title card, an intertext card that's like, Ellie felt that maybe in that moment that he could feel for Norma the love that a brother has for a sister again, and without this like lustful being in love with her. And he felt hopeful for that. And as they're talking to each other, but instead of the inner cards showing what they're saying, it's showing like quotes from like literature, basically kind of disproving this idea. And you can see Ellie getting like more and more like upset a little bit at this, like, oh no, it's not true, I'm still in love with her,
Yeah, it's this weird thing where in the scene, Ellie's lust for Norma finally subsides and they have a true reunion as siblings, you know?
Yes.
And it feels wholesome for like 5 minutes. And then it starts looping back around to lust when Ersan shows up and sees them canoodling, and Ellie's like, well, actually, now that I see who she's with, I do have those feelings for her again.
Yes.
And it's just a doomed thing between Ellie and Sisif both. Like, both of them have these feelings for her that they know are doomed. And, Ellie writing his note inside of a violin was like, he writes this note to her professing his love and puts it inside of a violin that he gives her, knowing that in all likelihood she will never read this note because it's too difficult for him to actually have her learn about him. Of course, she does. The note is revealed when Ersan smashes the violin in a fit of jealous rage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's
that
Go
whole
ahead, go ahead.
that whole like I love that whole part of the movie where, yeah, Elie's like kind of in her son's neck of the woods and gives her the violin, and like her son like can kind of just pick up on the incest vibes, and because I think he knows about Sisif. I don't know if he knows about Eli, but it's like coming from this family, you can't be too sure.
Well, I mean, he does know about Sisif because it's like that's the reason a marriage gets arranged, right? Is because
Yes.
he's like
Yeah.
blackmails him into it. He's like he reveals he foolishly is like my daughter isn't actually my daughter, and I really want to fuck her.
I'm trying to smash, bro.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's like, Sisif in one of the great lapses of judgment of all time is like, I think I'm going to bare my heart and soul, my deepest, darkest secret. I think I'm going to tell it to the one guy in the movies who has worn a top hat. Like,
He's
like
Sisif
the
is
villain from
getting
The Great Race,
Yeah, Sisif is getting investigated, and he's like, let me tell my deepest, darkest secret to the guy who's in charge of the guys who are investigating me right now. Just
Yes.
very stupid, very stupid. But hey, what do you expect from a turn-of-the-century railway worker?
And then I feel like her son immediately is like, that's fucked up. I get to marry your daughter now because I'll tell her,
Yeah,
if you...
not only should you not sleep with her, I will.
Yeah.
Yes.
That sounds like a good idea, pal. I think I'll do it myself. How about that? But
Exactly.
then that whole thing with her son getting jealous over like Norma playing the violin, and then he gets real violent with her. You know what I mean? Starts like jerking her around and trying to basically rapes her, and then you have Ely from the window, and we get some nice color work. Ely in like the blue night and kind of like the sepia. I believe, from what I can remember, there's a lot of colors in this movie. It's hard for me to remember all the colors, but I think it's like a sepia tone, with the sexual violence, and it's, like I in doing some LR on the movie, it is like some people kind of critique the story. Everyone loves the visuals, of course. I could see that a bit, but it is like I feel like the intensity of this storyline of the double incest, lust, secret, romance is just such a great vehicle for intense emotions and just intense visual tricks that are what makes the movie so beloved. So I'm standing up for the double incest storyline.
I think it whips also, and I like this movie was savaged by a lot of critics when it came out.
Really?
Yeah, because they were basically like, it's regressive, it's regressive in that it is trying to be too literary, and it's trying to ape Victor Hugo basically was the big criticism. It's trying to be what Victor Hugo is instead of trying to be something new. Cinema in the 20s, there was this idea of this could be something new and something huge, and so they kind of savaged the storyline and the kind of melodrama of it. And this is something we talked about, Eddie, in our, when you came on Movie Mindset to talk about Fassbinder, the way that melodrama is kind of poo-pooed critically. Mm-hmm. By male critics, and derided as a very childish and very like female art form. I think this is kind of a precursor to that almost, where it's like, it's very juvenile. It's very, regressive. It's oversimplified. It's manipulative. I think one of the people that hated this movie the most was Ezra Pound, who said that.
Old friend.
We all
returning champion of the podcast. Ezra
returning
Pound.
champion Ezra Pound. Ezra Pound deemed the movie only essentially cinematographic, but its depictions of the only good parts, Ezra Pound said, were the images of machines in motion, and he said that those weren't even Abel Gance. Those were someone else. The remainder was the usual driveling idiocy of the cinema of sentiment. And yeah, there was a lot of that, like, and it wasn't just like right-wing guys like Ezra Pound. It was this article makes a point of saying like it was both the right and the left were both like this fucking like, this is kind of sentimental and overly, it's like drivel basically. And I think like time has really proved all those kind of critiques wrong a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially like the denial of authorship kind of in those critiques, which is it is interesting to think about, like maybe this wasn't Abel Gance's like, auteur masterwork. Maybe it was other people. Like a lot of critics at the time said that the editor was actually the true genius of the movie. Sendrar.
And his assistant director too also gets a lot of credit. Blaise
that's
Sendrar,
so funny. Yeah. It's truly like, it's fucking crazy. I think, it's like, it's very funny, considering how huge this movie is nowadays and how you could argue that they were right and the film went in the wrong direction because people copied Roue, but I would not argue that because I love this movie. It fucking whips. It goes crazy. I think Jean Cocteau said a famous unattributed quote. No one is sure if he actually ever said this, but there is cinema before and after Roue, and as there is painting before and after Picasso, which is a huge statement. But it can't be traced further back than like 1959 or something. So people aren't sure if he actually said it, but I buy it.
I mean, that's a print the legend moment. It's like, oh, someone heard Cocteau say it. We'll run with that. We got it. That's too good of a quote not to say it. Yeah. I mean, the way that this wraps up is really fantastic. I think that, as I talked about, the blind antics run a little long in part 4, where essentially after the deaths, the simultaneous deaths of Ersan and Ellie in that crazy Mission Impossible style set piece, part 4 is mainly just like Norma creeping around the house, unbeknownst to Sisif, which is like, she's got to make some noise at some point. I thought when people went blind, their other senses got heightened. I was thinking by like, don't breathe logic,
Yes. But that's the point, right? Because like the entire point is that when she finally does like slip up and say something, and she like points out the thing, and he says like, I think like one of the most emotionally affecting lines I've ever heard in any movie that just literally made me like burst into tears when I saw it was she finally says something, and after like 6 straight hours of him trying to ignore her and him being completely like, I'm not talking to you, I can't look at you, I can't even like acknowledge that you exist, I'm turning my back to you. After all that, she finally says something, which is like, the engine on Norma 3, like the compressor's messed up, and she like covers her mouth, and there's a close up on Sisif, and there's like a long pause, and then he just says like, kids are driving them now, you understand. It's basically like he's known she's been there the whole time, but he just has been too proud to acknowledge it, and like has been waiting for her to acknowledge it, and he's been waiting this whole time for her to make herself known. And it's this like moment of, you know, like a lesser silent film director. That moment is the emotional release of the past 6 hours and 40 minutes of the entire film. And it is like a total, like, the entire movie is a buildup to that one line up until that point. And Gance treats it like so, like, to treat it so, like, nonchalantly. And so it's very advanced. It's like, you know, another silent film director would have had him be like, my daughter, I'm so glad you're here. I always thought it might be you. I'm sorry for everything that's happened. Please forgive me. And then she would have been like, oh, Father, forgive me. And they would have hugged and kissed and, like, you know, had a great, like, reuniting moment. But Gance, it's that he just, like, says it like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, and that kind of makes it so much more emotionally resonant and so much more, like, it really is to me like one of the most affecting moments I've ever seen in a movie. Like that moment. I think that's where
I think it's one of the strengths of the dramatics of the movie is that, like, the material is so melodramatic, but Gance knows when to direct the actors to downplay it a little bit, you know? And it's because you can't have, like, this fever pitch of melodrama sustained for 7 hours. You know, it has to come in peaks and valleys and stuff like that. So, yeah, I really like that, especially because it leads up to the end. It's like from that moment until the end is maybe 30 minutes or so. And it's pure grace, you know, nobody is overacting. It's just like the material itself is so cathartic that everyone's performances are kind of downplayed at that point. And that is when, you know, you learn about the local villagers in the Alps who have a ceremonial dance where they go to the top of the hill and dance in a circle and burn a tree. Which sounds pretty fun. I would like to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and Severin Mars's performance as Sisyphe, it really is. I think it's kind of like it's the great shift in acting of the 20th century, like happening in, like, throughout a movie, like during a movie. You know what I mean? And there are parts like when he's blind and he has, like, the silent movie blind eyes where he's like you know, like his eyes are kind of far rolled back in his head and he looks like Rubber Johnny kind of from the Aphex Twin music video.
He looks like that guy from Dune who, like, rolls his eyes back to the back of his head to recall certain knowledge.
Yes, exactly. You know? Yeah. And there is stuff like that in the latter half, but after, like, in part 4, his acting in this whole movie is unfucking believable. Like in the part 1 where he's giving the Kubrick stare with his face covered in soot, it's sick. You know, he's doing all this silent film mugging kind of, but like the last shot of him alive where he's looking out the window and it's literally just a freeze frame of him looking out the window. That's
what I love the most is that it's the moment that, and this film is very religious in that sense, or at least believing in the souls leaving the body and into the heavens, because the film freezes on him at that moment, and then it will intercut with other things in his environment. But when it shows Sisyphe from the moment he dies onward, it only shows him in a freeze frame of that split second when his soul leaves his body.
Exactly.
And the way that it visualizes his soul leaving him into the heavens is by overlaying images of trains over the clouds. And it's, you know, humorous, but also very moving. Like, I find that extremely moving to see, you know, Norma join the dance that represents the wheel of life that we've been seeing through this whole thing. You know, they're dancing in a circle to represent the wheel continuing to turn. And, you know, the soul of Sisyphe is now in the clouds represented by train footage. And it's it's a beautiful way to end the movie on that fade to white from the heavenly spot in the Alps where those trains are soaring through the sky.
And his expression in that shot, also in that freeze frame, is so subtle and so like it really does like I not to be like a nerd or like I don't know. I'm trying not to be overpraise it or anything, but it really is like Brando or like James Dean level, like subtlety equals like it's film acting. It's not theater acting. It's not opera acting. It's like that is, and the fact that it's a freeze frame like that, it's like Gance knew kind of almost. It makes me feel like Gance knew and was like, this is the wave. Like this is it. The more like the smaller the acting and the smaller the performance during these emotional like parts, the bigger the reaction is going to be. And it's the same with Norma when she's dancing in the circle with all the people. You never see that circle from like closer than like 40 feet away.
Yeah, you're always from the window.
Yes, and it's so like unbelievably it's so unbelievably beautiful. Like I genuinely would have been the guy like at the premiere to jump on the stage and be like, play that shit again. Like DJ run that shit back. Absolutely, dude. And like I fucking love this movie so much. I am so obsessed with this movie. I want to rewatch it again like right now. I'm dead serious. I know that I'm insane for that. I rewatch Satan Tango once a year. Like just like shit like that. But there's just so much. This movie is so beautiful to me. I'm so thankful that you guys let me bring it on the pod and talk about it.
Of course, Hesse. Any other final thoughts on this picture as we wrap up here, and a rating on a scale of 1 to 5 bullets?
Well, 5 bullets, obviously. 5 bullets straight to the fucking dome, straight to the brainstem. And I don't know if I say anything else. There's so much we're missing for sure, and people will be quick to point it out, which they feel free to. There's definitely so much that we're missing. There's the shot in the opening credits where Gance himself is in the opening credits, and you see his face like looking at people, like looking at the audience, kind of. There's all sorts of crazy literary references that we're definitely missing, that I'm definitely missing because I don't read that many books. But yeah, I just fucking, I love this movie so much, and I cannot recommend that you watch it enough. I think the entire thing is worth it for the ending, and it's great along the way. I think it is, truly.
JT, what about you?
I'm going to go 4.5 bullets on it. I think this was really amazing and special and just so, I don't know, just like a landmark achievement that obviously ripples throughout cinema. And sort of like what we're talking there about the fourth part and the ending. I love what Hesse was saying about sort of how the acting sort of changes calibration there and is less melodramatic, and like it goes like to a toned down approach that I think makes it more effective because of what came before it being so large and over the top. And I think that's true like with the plotting as well. Like I feel like initially why, like, I don't know, going into the fourth part and just like watching the movie as a whole unfold before me, I was surprised because I think there are very like conventional ways like a silent film would go, and I think that like in a more like usual route, I think that like it is like misery nonstop to the very end, and I was anticipating in the scenes in the blind antics at the end that he would wind up like killing his daughter, and it would be some level of pure misery. But it's instead like such a beautiful reprieve from that. And then like a detail that I really like is that like Norma never discovers like sort of the mystery of like her life, which I mean, I suppose some people could paint that as like negative because she doesn't know the truth. But I think living in that ignorance is like incredibly beautiful and moving, and like not knowing the vicious lust. I mean, I'm certain she's definitely, they're both giving off vibes, brother and sister, like about what's going on, but not knowing that your father is on the cusp of raping you and being instead able to live with him as a peaceful blind man who sort of lets you move on the way life does. I think is really powerful. And again, just having that moment, because it's like, it's not all like, I don't know, it's still like just him coming to terms with having a miserable life and then croaking at peace. Like it doesn't undo the misery that we've seen. But yeah, I don't know. It really cements it as just a powerful achievement. And I think before on the podcast, I've posited my theory that if you watch too many silent movies, it will make you racist, or it has like you come dangerously close. Especially like seeing a bunch of white people dancing in a circle on the Alps at the end. It's just like you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I kind of see what these white nationalists
Okay, they're burning
guys
a
are talking
tree,
about.
huh? It's not the same kind of tree that Jesus was crucified on, you know?
Yeah.
But so my caution to the viewer is like if you're gonna watch LaRue, like wait 6 months before you watch another silent movie, or you're going to be like looking into like, I don't know, you're I mean, it's dangerous, man. Just be careful. There's a reason why Eddie, Malcolm, and I did this in sittings. And apparently, I mean, I don't want you to read in.
And
what
I'm more
Hesse-
racist than ever
Yeah.
now. I'm more racist than ever. It's truly, it's unreal.
Well, the best way to watch LaRue is you go to the hood and you watch LaRue, you know, so you get that real experience, you know.
That's the only way to watch a silent movie and not become a 20s style racist. Is you got to watch a silent movie in a black theater.
He does have soot on his face for a lot of the beginning of the movie.
Oh,
He does
yeah.
the old accidental
I-
face, you know.
Yeah, I did think it would be funny if, like, I was joking. My younger brother watched the first 4 hours of this with me today. I joked to him about in the beginning when he's in the bar for all the like railway worker guys, and he has like the face covered in soot, and there's like an agent from the like, you know, higher ups office in there taking notes on them. Like, this one guy drinks water. This other guy drinks beer. Mockifer drinks straight vermouth, which I think is very concerning, and you should have put an asterisk next to that. But it would be funny if he also wrote in there like, Seif is in blackface? Question mark.
Yeah.
Because his face is covered in
Seif seems
soot.
to be drinking shoe polish.
He's fucked up and drunk, and he's in blackface, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
Well, that's not blackface. That's, you know, white guys used to look like that back when they used to work. Now they're all lazy. They don't want to work for the money.
yeah,
they want
absolutely.
that government cheese, you know. So
there's not a lot of racism in this, honestly, though. Like,
well, you know, there's only one race.
I mean, even as far as French movies go, I mean, in like, I think even in like Cocteau Beauty and the Beast, there's some racism. Like, I think it does like sneak in there. I think maybe
it's just
Jean Vigo for sure. Like I don't really remember L'Atlante, but like I would bet there's like a little bit in there somewhere. But you know,
Zero for Conduct is just about how much kids rule and adults drool. So I think that one's too like enlightened to be racist. Yeah.
Children of Paradise. I don't know. I can't remember if that one's racist. I don't think so.
But I think the virtue of it being a French film from that period is like you what was being said on set
of racism of everyone working on it.
Do you want do you guys want actually I'll give before JT gives his verdict or I'll do it.
I said 4.5 bullets, yeah.
Yeah. But
okay.
Malcolm and I still have to go. But what were you
guys both
what were you
going
to say?
I was going to say one of my favorite fun facts about cinema ever is that the 1980 Venice Film Festival, the grand jury was Satyajit Ray, Andrei Tarkovsky, several other filmmakers, and of course that was the festival in which Querelle was in competition, and the jury president was like a 92-year-old Marcel Carné, and Marcel Carné, when they gave the Golden Lion to something other than Querelle, he wrote a very heartfelt and beautiful letter resigning as the jury president because he was like, I can't believe they gave it to something other than Querelle because this is one of the most significant and beautiful movies I've ever seen, and it's I've never seen anything like it, and I think we need to acknowledge Fassbinder as the genius that he is, and in the future. And this is from a 92-year-old mime. Like, this is literally a professional mime who was trained in the mime arts in like 1897 or something. So I love that fact. Marcel Carné, real one. Children of Paradise, great movie. Anyway, sorry.
Mimes were the anti-racist back then because they painted their face white, so
exactly.
they were kind of progressive back then.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm, any final thoughts and a rating?
I'm gonna give this 4 bullets. I really do think, it's amazing, and like to cover everything, like it is really like a movie where we could talk about like an hour of it and have an hour to say, because there's just so many techniques and shots, but we can't do a 7-hour podcast, but maybe if we do Phantom, we do like a 13-hour miniseries, maybe we will reach that mark. But it is just the manipulations going on with the images and whatnot, and like there's a real like handcrafted quality to it, and especially when like you could see like there's some painting on I feel like there's a scene, I think when Ellie's like in the fancy violin world, and you get a nice coloring on the rug, nice red rug.
Yeah, it's the red dress of the woman dancing.
Exactly, yeah, and just all the different techniques, like all the irises. Like I feel like one of the underrated strengths is like I feel like like especially how quick shots are, Eddie was talking about earlier, like these like irises and like the use of like the oval framing, like it almost feels like you get the feel that the frame's just like tightening up and like really hammer home that intensity. I guess with the 7 hours, I did kind of feel fatigue. Like if I just had to be honest with myself, I did kind of feel fatigue.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I don't begrudge anyone for not watching this movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Because, like, for that reason, it is a lot. It's like...
Yeah, it made me... This might be sacrilege, but I feel like if I were to do a rewatch, I would want to... I want to take a peek at that 4.5-hour version. I don't know. It might be bastardized. Might be a bastardization, but like I said previously, I kind of like the emotional heights it reaches, and there's a lot of opportunities for Gance to get off some great visual imagery. It is like, is there 7 hours of story? And it's like, maybe there's like 5, but like I am bringing out the safety scissors. I don't know. It's kind of low-brained criticism, but I also, just a random thing that we didn't shout out. I love Sisif's suicide attempt by ghostwriting the whip. He like
Yes,
gets
okay,
the train
I-
started and then like lays down on the tracks and tries
I actually
to
do.
Yeah.
I do have something to say about that.
Let's
and
go.
It is,
Let's hear it.
Okay, so that suicide attempt. There's a quote right before it where throughout the movie and also on like 90% of the intertitle cards in the movie, there's an image of someone being tortured on a Catherine wheel.
Yeah, I
in the
remember
upper
that.
corner.
And I was like, what was that?
Yeah, it's just like life is torture. Life is torture. You're strapped to this wheel. And like there are two Kipling quotes in because like there are both dialogue and descriptions, but also like literary quotes interspersed between the movie in the in the like intertext like title cards. And the one right before he tries to kill himself is it's cited to Kipling, and it's "I go to free myself from the wheel of things by a most broad and open road," and that's a Kipling quote from a book. And the point at that book, that is like a Buddhist telling that to someone. By being like, you have to free yourself from desire by like releasing yourself from all desire. There's one like free open road like to do that, but its interpretation in this movie is like you have to fucking kill yourself. That's the only way to
free
escape.
yourself from the desire of your daughter.
Yeah, that's the only way to escape from life is to fucking kill yourself. From the, like that's the only way to escape from the pain of life. And he rides his train and tries to get in front of it. And he gets his first citation. He's not even fired, which is really funny also.
Very lenient bosses back then.
Yes,
It's
yes,
like
yes.
they didn't have a lot of people waiting to become train conductors. They're like, all right,
Yes.
if we fire this guy, we don't know who's going to replace him. We got to just keep an eye
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, that's also so you feel bad for him. All right, there's one aspect of the movie I guess maybe I do get, but I'm like, it is like there's like a Sisyph as like Christ metaphor going
Yeah.
on. Is it just because
That is
he's-
true. I mean, it
Yeah.
goes all the way to the end where
Yeah.
the end card has an image of Christ on the cross.
Exactly, like it really
Yes.
goes for it. And it's like, is it just because he's suffering like Jesus? But I guess I didn't.
Yes, Sisyph died for our sins. I don't
True.
really get that, but I kind of get it. It's like
Yeah, a little
it's
bit.
trying to equate the literary references and the classical references with religion, and it just I don't know. Maybe it's not the most clear-cut thing. Maybe it's supposed to contrast religion with those two other sources.
Well, I think I can maybe answer to this a little bit.
Okay.
And it's that like Gance has this quote about like leaning on old myths and stuff like that, and leaning on stuff like literally repeating like old stories and stuff, because even in the stuff in this movie like the Oedipus Rex stuff, it's obviously very different from Oedipus Rex, because there is a guy who is incestuous and goes blind, but it is not at all like Oedipus Rex, in which a guy accidentally has sex with his mom and then pokes his own eyes out and then like wanders the world as like, you know, doing kung fu or whatever the fuck happens at the end of that movie. Like he was very averse to stuff like that and stuff of like he called it like he has a quote, it's like let me see if I can find it. It's about Judas or something, where he said he sought to escape culture's worn-out parables and castigated words themselves as the Judases of our kingdom. And he said the ineffable we feel inside ourselves lay beyond even our loftiest verbiage. So I think like that final image of Jesus is just like simply, it's not him saying like, oh, Sisyphe is Jesus, or this is a story like a Christ allegory or something like that. It's just like suffering. It's him like putting an image out there and being like, this is kind of like this isn't the message of the movie, but it's an image that I want you all to think on. It's almost sacrilegious in that it's like, I want you all to think of Sisyphe and his struggles and your own struggles by extension on the wheel of life as being equivalent to that of Jesus on the cross. And like all suffering, just being on the wheel is noble in its way and is sacrificial and is beautiful. And it's the only way to live. It's the only way to live is to suffer. And you idolize this guy for doing it. So if you do, like, think about that and think about yourself next time you suffer, kind of. It's very... Wow. I think it's almost kind of sacrilegious in that way.
Well, yeah, it's like a very... I don't know. It also kind of represents Sisyphe as a very pious man, but with his religion being his work, And I feel like what Hesse was just saying about the wheel being suffering, it's kind of just like the religion of labor becoming your life. And I think that is kind of it's showing it as something of a noble or virtuous life. And he says he
says to Ellie at one point, sorry for I keep interrupting, but he says at one point, I'm an artist like you. Yeah. When I work on these trains, I'm also an artist, and because Ellie makes violins and thinks of that as like an artisanal, music is an art, and he's like, you know what, like working on a train is an art as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a very good interpretation. I like that. I like that.
I am gonna go echoing Malcolm here with 4 bullets. I think this is a fantastic movie. Not like my very favorite. The thing is, like, there are parts of this where I think the dramatics definitely drag a little bit. I don't really have any problems with like anything that happens in the movie. I just think there are certain beats that take a very long time to happen when they don't need to necessarily, and I felt myself getting my patience tested like a couple times, but in the grand scheme of things, that's just a side effect of watching a fucking 7-hour movie. Like,
yes.
I felt that way during Satan Tango too, but years later, I still think about Satan Tango, and like certain scenes from it have stuck with me so deeply, and I feel the same way about Roue already. Like that opening train crash, I watched it 5 days ago and haven't stopped thinking about it at all, particularly the drops of blood and the way that like it's probably my favorite use of hand-painted frames other than like experimental filmmakers like Brakhage using them.
Literally hand-painted, because there's a hand that sticks out of the wreckage that's blood. Yes. That's red with blood. Yeah,
it's so good. And I feel like that also is like almost a statement of purpose from Gance as an artist. He's saying like, this is the limits of cinema. Like this is us doing as much as we possibly can, and it's just such a commendable aesthetic feat in that regard that like it's the kind of movie that makes me think that sometimes style over substance is totally fine. And that's not to say it's not a substantial movie. It wouldn't be if we couldn't talk about it if we just talked about it for 2 hours, obviously, and it was a lot more than just describing aesthetics. So there is like a lot of substance to this movie, but it has such a feeling of invention and curiosity and exploration in its style that you really only see in early cinema. And I think it's just such a feat of style that I have to give it the almost perfect score. A fantastic movie. Definitely want to check out more by Abel Gance. Did you know that he had a film, like his last film was in 1960?
Ooh.
Holy shit.
Co-starred Claudia Cardinal and Orson Welles.
God damn, dude. That fucking
And
whips.
Jack Palance, too.
Oh,
And Jean-Louis
dude.
Trintignant. Like, it has a crazy fucking cast about Napoleon. which is funny because he has his silent Napoleon epic. This one is called Austerlitz, and I thought maybe it would be about like World War II because it's in 1960, but no, old ass Abel Gance is still talking about Napoleon. Because I saw the title Austerlitz, I was like, oh, same as like the W.G. Sebald novel? No, not even close. Anyway,
I just want to say as a closing parting thought, thank you guys so much for being such good sports and watching this movie.
Oh, of course. I mean, to go back to your opening question, the answer is yes, it is worth it.
Yeah, of course it's worth
it. It would be worth it if I only gave it 3 stars. Like, I really think that this is a tremendous movie, and the length thing is like, yeah, sometimes you got to hunker down with a long one, but I don't think the viewers out there are expected to watch this in one sitting. It's split into parts, and the third part even has a previously on Roue segment, you know, where it's like catching you up because this was displayed over the course of 3 weeks, you know. Like, I think that serializing this is a totally fine way to approach it, and if you do it like that, it's like, fucking all right, what are you gonna do? Rewatch another season of The White Lotus, or watch Roue? I say that because I literally watched The White Lotus for the first time
great ass show
this week,
dude.
as well as
Season 2.
Roue.
Which season?
The first one. I haven't watched the second one.
Second is so much better.
It is
so much
okay.
better.
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
It
yeah.
is
That's
definitely
good to
better.
know. That's good to know.
I will say, I promise next time you have me on, we're gonna do a normal movie, and not a normal movie, but a normal length movie.
Well,
And
it's never normal when Hesse comes on the podcast.
I
That's fine.
thank you.
That's fine.
And
I think that Hesse's indulgence in duration is like one of the great features of this show and the extended clip universe. I mean, very few people watched this. This is a true Velvet Underground moment where, 12 people watched me stream PGA 2K21 with Hesse as my guest.
Yes.
But all of them have their own podcasts now.
Yes.
A 3-hour stream where I built a golf course from her directions over the phone.
yes, that was
which
so
was great.
funny. Do you still have the VOD of that? Do you still have
It
the
was so
VOD of
fun.
that?
I think that is on YouTube. I think it's
Oh
on
my
the
God,
extended
thank
clip
God,
YouTube.
dude.
Yeah. With
That
like
was so
12
fun.
views.
I looked that up because that was so fun. I was so drunk. It was like deep. That was
Extended clip
deep
YouTube's
pandemic,
amazing.
dude.
People are
The
sleeping on the
extended clip
YouTube.
YouTubers, people are sleeping on it. It's like 1 every 10 episodes I upload to YouTube.
I will. And also, speaking of, last thing I'll say, speaking of Velvet Underground, the next time I come on, we will, or I'll bring you guys on to Movie Mindset, because I do want to talk about whatever comes first, because I need to talk about these movies. Next time I come on, I'm talking Flesh for Frankenstein for sure.
Okay.
And
Absolutely.
Just to tease the viewers, I would like to read one more Udo Kier quote about being cast in Flesh for Frankenstein. Paul Morrissey was the director. He found me in an airplane on a flight from Rome to Munich, and I told him I was an actor. He wrote my phone number on the last page of his passport, so I thought I must be important to him. A couple of months later, I got a call from him. I'm not adding the emphasis, by the way. That is in the text of there's always an exclamation point when I do a sentence like that. So I thought I must be important to him. A couple of months later, I got a call from him. He said, I'm doing Frankenstein, and I have a little role for you. I said, oh, great. What's the role? He said, Frankenstein. So that's the next movie. We're going to do Andy Warhol's Frankenstein.
The Paul Morrissey directed Andy Warhol's Frankenstein also, I will say, the AD on it, or maybe even just like additional directing credit, is one Antonio Margheriti, who most people think is a fictional person from the Tarantino universe.
Yes,
but is actually,
co-director.
A spaghetti western, or not spaghetti western director, but a spaghetti director.
A spaghetto. He's a spaghetto himself. He has a really great movie. What's it called? What's the one that is about Vietnam vets fighting? He has a really funny one about Vietnam vets that are fighting zombies or something. That's
Really?
really fucking good. Yeah.
I had
It's
no
so
idea.
good. It's one of my favorite spaghetti westerns for sure.
Well, as we close out here, I just want to say, obviously, thank you to Hesse for coming on, and let alone her thanking us for having this extravaganza of an episode. So make sure, if you don't already listen to Movie Mindset and Seeking Derangements, check out those shows. I was on an episode of Movie Mindset that maybe one day will be released from the Patreon, but for now, you just got to
It will. Every season we release the last season, I think. So it will.
Really?
Nice.
Yeah.
But if you're in a rush, just keep adding to the Chapo Bucks counter, and sign up for their Patreon and listen. And I mean, I feel like I had something else I was going to end on here, but that's what it was. Okay, so first of all, email us at extendedclippodcast@gmail.com. We actually do have some emails, but we're already over 2 hours on this episode, so we will do an email segment next episode. But extendedclippodcast@gmail.com. Look us up on Patreon. The link will be in the description. $5 a month, extra episode every single week. The last Patreon episode was on Drugstore Cowboy, and the next one is to be determined. And I will leave you with this one anecdote, only because we are so deep into the podcast that I feel safe saying it. I would not lead off the podcast with this anecdote usually, but because Antonio Margheriti was brought up, I will say that the other day I saw Quentin Tarantino take a VHS copy of BoJest into the bathroom with him. He went to the bathroom with a copy on VHS of BoJest. That is all, ladies and gentlemen. Good night, everybody.
Good night.